The honor of a lifetime is how President Trump described his meeting with Pope Francis earlier today at the Vatican. The two global leaders met for about a half an hour in the Pope's private study, and apparently the conversation ranged from terrorism to climate change to peace. Will this historic meeting and conversation leave a mark on President Trump, an indelible feeling as he heads to the G7 meeting at the end of the week? We bring a former ambassador to the Vatican and Republican congressman from Florida, Francis Rooney. I'll call you ambassador because that's really incredible that you were the ambassador to Vatican. What are you getting? What sense are you getting from how well this meeting went down? Because during the campaign, there was a little bit of friction between the two.
There was more than a little bit of friction. It was pretty
I was
intense.
being delicate.
Yeah. But I think all that's put behind him now. You look at the communique focusing on promoting peace through negotiation and interreligious dialogue puts it right in the, reflects the natural alignment of the Holy See in the United States. And it also gives a good nod to the unique soft power diplomacy the Holy See can exercise in that area.
One of the gifts, they exchanged gifts. President Trump gave him, heck, I would want this, first edition of Martin Luther King's writings. That is just brilliant. And then Pope Francis gave him an olive branch, sort of a little metal sculpture, and an encyclical, which is Catholic writings, and he signed them. And it seemed like it was a very warm meeting. But what do you think comes from this? Because the encyclical was about climate change.
Well, I don't know that this administration and many conservative Americans are going to ever 100% agree with Pope Francis on his encyclical, but I think we all agree that there are things that need to be done to deal with the human impacts on the climate, and I'm sure that they discussed that. But more importantly, I think they focused on how the Holy See is uniquely positioned to join with the United States and other nations to help work to reform Islam and find a way forward in dealing with radical Islamic terrorism.
The president is now on the ground in Brussels, and he then heads to the G7 meeting in Italy. And I'd like to know from your standpoint, because, of course, you are a member of the House Foreign Affairs Committee, but also the House Joint Economic Committee, trade. You have many important trade partners in the G7. Number 6 export market for the U.S., Germany. Number 8 partner, France, for the U.S. There is a lot of discussion about tightening borders and taxing and putting tariffs on. What is your best thought of how this should work?
Well, I think the administration's spoken about the importance of bilateral trade relationships with all of our major partners, so I'm sure that'll come up. I'm sure the concept of where to go with England will come up after Brexit. And I know what's going to come up is this business of the horrible tragedy of African refugees coming into Lampedusa and Sicily, and what, if anything, can be done by the civilized world to keep those people down in Africa and to create some conditions where they can prosper.
You know, I heard that Italy had figured out a way to at least tackle that issue, but you're right, the refugee problems are massive, and they may only get worse if Syria continues on this horrific trajectory. It's good to see you, Ambassador. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me on.
Ambassador and Congressman Francis Rooney, our pleasure.